Parents are asking me, Coach Annie, what are the most important executive functions? And how can I learn them so that I can model and teach them to my kids? Executive functions are specific skills, life skills, or I like to call them performance skills that every kid, every teen must have and must develop during adolescence in order to become a successful and autonomous young adult. Executive functions don't just automatically or spontaneously sprout in the brain. They need to be taught and they have to be learned during the teenage years. So, what I have here for you is a list of 10 important executive functions with a specific strategy to help grow that skill. Here we go. Time management. I started here because this one is easy to improve and everyone, young and old, needs help in this department. The Pomodoro technique is the only way to go. Timed intervals of hyper-focus with short timed breaks in between. I know it sounds simple, but if you practice this regularly, like millions of students and entrepreneurs around the globe, your prefrontal cortex is going to grow like a beanstalk. The next is organization. A physical student planner is still the best way to go. There's nothing like old-fashioned pen and paper. Way better than digital for strengthening the brain. I also highly suggest that you start a family Google Calendar and say when your daughter asks, Mom, can I go hang out at the mall with my friends on Friday? You are busy and multitasking, so you say, well, let's see, pop open our Google Family Calendar and tell me what do you see on Friday. It's open? Okay, well, check with your dad and you've got a green light from me. Go ahead and add it to that calendar. Keeping a calendar is going to be an absolute essential thing for them going into the future, college, and career. Next is cognitive flexibility. Folks, I want you to practice spontaneity. Now, I know a very steady, even predictable routine is essential for kids. And it's also important to diverge from that routine once in a while. Be spontaneous in order to build this skill. Also super important in building cognitive flexibility is whenever you or your child voices an opinion, always explore the opposite. Consider and really talk about the opposite opinions from yours. Look at counter studies and counter arguments to your own notions and ideas. Don't be afraid of this. This is somewhat of a lost art and strangely unpopular these days. But if you only see one side of the coin, you're only going to get half the value. This one's my favorite. I really do feel like metacognition is the gateway to elevating all of the executive functions. So really play with this one. The esteemed ADHD researcher, Dr. David Nowell, suggests asking yourself and your kiddo, especially when they've done something good, new, or have a new accomplishment. Say, hey, great job, kiddo, and how exactly did you do that? This key phrase, this pivotal question, how exactly did you do that, is so important to metacognition. By asking and answering, how exactly did you do that, the brain is entering that next meta level and begins reflecting. And the brain is now thinking about its thinking, metacognition. Goal-driven persistence. Chunk down large assignments like essays, book reports, and science labs or science projects into smaller pieces by scheduling small portions of the large assignments on dates prior to the final due date. And absolutely use the student planner for this. Instead of entering 50 pages of reading due in English class on Friday, enter 25 pages due this Tuesday and the remaining 25 pages due on Thursday. Add in incentives just when necessary, but always add in lots of retroactive rewards. Sustained attention and focus. Mindfulness, imagery, and visualization are very effective here. The one that my students like the best is stop and focus, especially for brains with ADHD. And my students also practice parking, that is writing down any disrupting thoughts during monotasking on their palm pad. And then they can follow up on these items afterwards. Next is planning and prioritization. Practice the one thing. Gary Keller wrote the book, The One Thing, and he poses the great question of, what's the one thing I can do right now such that everything else gets a lot easier or even becomes unnecessary? I tell my students, just ask yourself, Gee, what am I dreading the most? What am I avoiding and procrastinating on the most? And voila, there you have your first priority. Working memory, lists, notebooks, Post-its, index cards, pictures, diagrams, these are all key. But remember, while these are the right tools and very affordable, they are only as good as the systems that you use habitually. Emotional control. Compliment your child on the good stuff. When they are regulating their emotions, give them tons of positive reinforcement in the moment and always place the praise on their effort. Parents, stay imperturbable always in your own actions and in your own behavior. Practice behaviors and emotional maturity so that you'll see the same in your child. When your child gets heated, use this magical question: how can I help? In order to think about and answer that question, the energy in your son or daughter's brain moves from the emotional back part of the brain into the rational part of their frontal lobes. Executive function number 10, we made it. Task initiation. Time blocking in the student planner or on the Google Calendar is what really works. Create a schedule and stick to it. Don't just schedule work and appointments, but also block out the time that you're going to exercise or study or finish homework. And even when you'll do chores or meal prep, and follow those appointments just as they appear on the calendar. And if all else fails, throw a tomato at it. The Pomodoro is truly the panacea for any weak executive function. There you have it, a rapid fire listing of 10 key executive functions and how to begin building them up in your brain and in your child's brain. Practice them together with your teenager. Even try to gamify your strategies. Hold one another accountable. You can even create some friendly competition. In fact, parents, I think you should ask your child to tell you which executive function they think you are weak in, and then you can tell them. You're gonna start practicing that strategy, you're gonna get better, and you want them to hold you accountable. Building out the brain doesn't have to be all work. It can be a lot of fun too for the whole family.